Good morning. Welcome to NFE Workshop number 4. We're going to be talking about renting our walk-behind and ride-on scrapers this morning. Really excited to have you here. If you're interested in going back and looking at any of the other rental equipment that we have, our shop blasters, grinders, that was actually number 3. So this is kind of a continuation of that. And just one quick piece of housekeeping before we go. Thank you for joining us. Please live chat in your questions. We've got Nick from our marketing team. He's watching that. He'll read them out to us. We are here for you, so we want to make sure you get all of that information. So my name's Tom Griffin, Regional Director of Sales for APAC and Latin America. Really happy to be here this morning. And then joining me, I'll let him introduce himself, is one of my bosses, Tom Dunn.
Good morning. I'm Tom Dunn. I am Vice President of Sales and excited to have you joining us and looking forward to this. This will be very helpful. So hopefully you'll have a lot of good questions. And with that, we can get rolling. Tom, fire away.
Yeah. So kind of our purpose for this morning is actually to talk about best practices for sending out and bringing back in your equipment. We've got these really great rental check-in out lists that our marketing team has put together for all of our different machines. And it's a really nice way, a quick high overview to make sure that all of the pieces and parts are going out to make your customer successful, because that's obviously what you want to do when renting. But also to protect your assets when you bring them back in, to make sure that everything you send out is being returned. Funny story that I had with that is one of my local rental customers here in Denver sent out one of their ride-on machines, and you can't get our ride-on machines on and off the job site or on and off a trailer without the transport wheels. It's just not possible. There's not enough clearance with that caster wheel, and the customer just insisted that they never had the transport wheels sent with them in the first place. And we were all just standing there. I was like, there's no way. And so they were going to order another set for me. They asked the customer to go back to the job site, and lo and behold, in some far corner where they had started their work, there was a set of transport wheels just sitting there. But because they knew what to look for, they knew that they had sent them out in the first place, and then also to then ask for it coming back at the end of the rental. Tom, have you've been around a little bit longer than I have. Have you have any fun stories or anything like that you've heard?
The biggest one is there's a lot of things you can do with these units, and in this case, it was a battery-operated unit that needed to go up an elevator. And when we talked through all that, and it was in fact me talking to the end user, and I told him to unweight the machine, and he said, "Yeah, that's not a problem." And when I instructed, unweight the machine, take off some batteries off the back, and then take those up on a second run. And if I didn't get a call, not a good call, later with a picture with the gentleman halfway between floors in the elevator, elevator broke, and I thought I was in a bit of trouble. And as I looked at the picture closer, all the batteries that were unloaded brilliantly and all the weights that were unloaded were leaning against the rider itself. So, job sites, they can be busy. People are hustling. Make sure that when they unweight it, keep that off. And then, like I said, make a second run. He ended up calling me back and saying, you know what, we discovered what the problem was with the elevator. So that happens. I'm not pointing fingers or picking on people. Job sites are hectic. Just be very clear in your instructions. Any questions on any of that, give us a call. And we have a lot of different stories like that throughout. And again, not teasing anybody, but there's a lot of things that can happen. It's busy. That's mine.
That's awesome.
It wasn't very awesome to start with.
Funny now, not so much funny then.
Right.
And guys, as we go through, I might reference you to our YouTube channel. We have a really great library of videos that our marketing team and Dave Bingham, who's not with us today, our director of training, has put together. With some more specific videos of some of the things that we're going to kind of do a little bit higher level on today. So there's a link down in the description to some of that. Obviously, you found our YouTube channel if you're watching us right now. So just click on that videos link later on. You don't want to leave us and our beautiful faces. And then, check those out too, because, you can reference those as well with QR codes and different things to your customers so that they can see that when they're on the job site. And then a quick plug for our marketing team. And this isn't going to help you right now, but in the future, our machines are going to come with a QR code on them. We recently switched websites and they built out a whole new thing. But our operating and service manuals are now all digital. So your customers are actually going to be able to scan that QR code on the machine, and it's going to take them to the website with all of the materials that they need for that ride-on. So those operating manuals as well as the service manuals, how to use the machines and best practices are all at their literal fingertips on the job site. So without further ado, Tom, should we hop into walk-behinds?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm going to pull out one of our walk-behinds here. The one I've got for us this morning is our Gladiator, which we did kind of a higher level look at last time, I think, as we were ending workshop number 3. And I think we want to kind of spend a little bit more time on it today, talking through the different pieces and parts. So, Tom, do you have the rental check-in out list in front of you?
I do.
If you want to walk through that, I can kind of demonstrate it on the machine. So that way they're kind of getting both of us as we go over this.
Perfect. Let's start with the very first. Make sure the power cord coming off of the machine, from the machine, is in good working condition. Not only plug it in, make sure it runs, make sure it's secured to the handle. These get banged around a lot, so make sure it's intact and attached to the machine firmly, and again, make sure there's juice running through it. You never know.
I feel like I'm a flight attendant right now demonstrating how to use the seatbelt. This is how you plug and unplug a machine.
Power switch. Flip it to the off position, so when they plug it in, not that anything's going to happen, but it's just a good practice. Make sure it's in the off position, of course, before you plug it in. You never know what could happen. I know these are seemingly pretty simple things, but again, better to be safe than sorry.
I've done that to myself a number of times, not paid attention. It got flipped in transport, plugged it in, and the machine just starts vibrating away. And
yeah, it's more startling than anything. It's not gonna jump ahead or anything, but it's startling. And with that said, make sure you do plug in the machine, turn it on, make sure it's operating, and all of that. I'm sure, again, this is what you do, but just being overly cautious. Next one, when the unit is powered, push the 2 control levels forward, back, left, right. Just make sure everything's working really well.
And here's a good example. We demoed this one, and it came back, and the handle is broken in one direction. So if you get it locked in, going forward, it seems to work fine, but then pulling it the other way, we need to do a repair on it. So that's a really important one to check.
Yeah, good point, Tom. Also, there's a T-handle a T-handle wrench that loosens and tightens the blade holder bolts so you can take blades in, secure them down, and all of that. Make sure that's attached to the handle. Seems silly, but if they don't have that, they're going to be stuck. Chances are they'll have something on the job site, but don't assume that. Now we're going to get down to the wheels. Depending on what job site it's on, whether it's carpet or anything, always check the wheel. If there's any debris on it, make sure it's cleaned off. The machine does have scrapers that do clean the wheels during the operation. Sometimes those loosen up, sometimes those go missing. So make sure the tires are clean of any debris and before it goes back out. So that could be glue, mastic, anything debris that could be stuck in the wheels. The wheels are sliced or siped, so it gives it better traction. Sometimes debris is caught in that as it grabs on. So blade holder, the business end of it, take a look at it, make sure it is intact. Hey, these machines do violent acts, right? So they're banging into hardwood, ceramic tiles, all sorts of things.
So here's one that isn't.
Yeah.
This one's missing a bolt. We've got some glue that's definitely glued it together. So that is going to take somebody some time to clean it off. So if you've got an employee that has to do that, then you got to charge for that. Otherwise, you're going to spend time and lose money on that rental.
Yeah, good point, Tom. Also, there's weights on the side. We've all seen them. They're long in shape. Make sure that they're securely attached to the machine. Be sure when renting this unit out that you explain what those are for. You push it forward, you got more down pressure on the head. Bring them back. It gives you more weight on the wheels. That's nice in case if it's a slick situation. Slick being some people put water down to try to get things up. I've seen it. I've done it. A lot of glues can be a bit slippery. So understand, make sure those weights are attached, and be sure that the end user is aware of what they're there for. We've seen people sit on this machine. Not a good idea. Maintenance. All the safety stickers, I know that's probably easy to look over. Make sure they're intact. They're there for a reason. They're there to protect the user. They're there to protect the people renting it, and they're certainly there to protect us as a manufacturer. We spend a great deal of time on those. Those are important. We know that. Make sure that they're eligible. We can get them out to you immediately. We got stacks of them. So be sure that those are in play and able to read. Operating manual, we just discussed. That's great. They're always going to be on the machine in the form of a QR code. That is fantastic.
And I guess if for people who have machines already in the field, if they want to retrofit and get those QR codes for the machines they have, is that something we're going to offer? I'm looking more at our marketing team right now. Potentially. But they are available for free to anybody on our website under the resources tab. So the maintenance and rental checklists that we're referencing are also available on our website for anybody. So also good for business owners watching this who maybe aren't in the rental business. You guys are sending these out with crews that don't exactly know what they're doing either. This is a great way to make sure the asset that you're sending out and bringing back in is intact and ready to go for your next job.
Absolutely. Good point, Tom. I was with an outfit that sends out 18 riders a day, literally 18. I've seen it. I've been there. These checklists are as equally as important for them while they're not renting it. It's safety checkpoints for their own employees, and it shepherds them in the right direction of making these machines operable and safe. So that's brilliant. For rental transport, make sure you affix the transport wheels to the top of the blade cover. It just adds in safety and stability to the machine. And lastly, and this might be the call we get most often, is that when you get it, plug it in, you put the handles forward, it doesn't drive. We all have those hooks on top, those loops. That's for raising and lower it. We use those while we build the machine. Attached to that should be 2 pins. Those go through the hub and then through the axle that allows the machine to drive. Make sure those are on board so your rental customer isn't out on the job site not able to go forward or reverse.
Well, and one thing. Oh, sorry, Tom. I was going to say one thing.
Last thing, if they don't have those pins, 16 penny nails bent work good too.
I like that. On the Gladiator specifically, our other machines don't have it. Possibly with the swivel heads, but we make a soft goods head and a hard good head to go on the Gladiator, hold the tooling holders at the proper angle. So if you're sending both of these out, you need to make sure that both of them come back. And that's just kind of covered under, miscellaneous parts and knowing what you rent. But, if you try to remove soft goods with a hard goods head, that's not going to work so well. So make sure that if you're sending both of them out of the rental, that they come back too.
Perfect.
So
that concludes the checklist on the 6280 HD Gladiator.
Yeah, and I think that that's a pretty good walkthrough for all of our walk behinds in general. I mean, there's some specifics to each machine. Obviously, 5280 has a removable saddle weight. You want to make sure that that comes back. If you send out a swivel head with any of our smaller walk behinds, that comes back. But, also kind of that's not on here, if you're sending out tooling, if you're not selling the tooling with the machine and you're, shanks and all that you want to have come back, make sure that you can include that on here for your version, or just that your employees are aware of it.
Before you move that, do you want to talk about proper loading and unloading and what might be damaged in the course of not doing that right if you're coming in
Perfect.
with a trailer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So proper unloading and loading of this machine, definitely have the transport wheels on it. I don't have them on there right now, but I will tilt it back and kind of show you how to put it in. I don't think I have a locking pin for it, so I'm not going to do anything crazy. The transport wheels are there for a reason, because between this bottom plate on the machine and the top plate that holds everything else, there are some rubber isolators. So if you are slamming this machine down or moving it without the transport wheels and allowing that head to continually hit the floor, you're flexing those isolators more than they should be. And this machine is meant to take a beating all day and remove flooring, but the repeated very hard hits like that are definitely going to break those isolators over time and make them wear out faster. When I was out on the road, my van and trailer had a winch, and I had bought some tow chains, just, like the ones you would connect your trailer to your van with or your truck with. I just got an extra set. I hooked one on here, kind of a hoop around here, and then I hooked the winch to that so that the winch had a perfect pull point at the front of the machine, so it wasn't pulling one way or the other. And that freed me up to be able to kind of guide the machine up. Once it was stored in the machine in the van, I like to take the transport wheels out and put the locking pins in. It just makes it more secure as you're strapping the ride-on in walk-behind in, because this is still a beast of a machine. At almost 500 pounds, you don't want this flying anywhere in your van or trailer behind you. And I think, just being aware, I'm not wearing steel toes right now, but when you're on the job site, if this were to go over your foot, that's a lot of weight on your foot. So make sure that you've got steel toe boots on, and that you're just aware this is still a machine that can damage you even if it's not running. And there is a nice little handy foot rest back here that helps you to pivot the machine as well. All right. So I think that was a pretty good cover on that one. Should we move on to riders and kind of talk about battery-operated riders and scrapers, propane riders and scrapers, and the difference in what you need to go over, what the similarities are, what the differences are. I happen to have a propane rider here in our shop today. And really, the difference between those, on a propane machine, obviously you have a propane engine that's going to require some additional maintenance, some additional checkover. And then the batteries don't require maintenance themselves, but they are going to require you to look at them to make sure that they're clean, that everything's good to go. So we'll cover those differences, but I'm not going to be able to show you the battery machine parts today. But for where they are similar on this propane machine, I will do my best to demonstrate that as well. Great machines, and I think having been in the rental, not myself in the rental industry, but been around the guys that are in it, they love our machines, Tom, and I think you hear this a lot too. They're really low maintenance between rentals. What have you heard?
Yeah, it's very much so that when they come in, the turnaround time, if you will, to get them ready for to be rented out is quick. There's a little bit more with a propane motor, check oil, different things like that. But the turnaround time from having them brought back to the shop and back on the floor, if you will, for rent is very quick. There's very little really to go over. A lot of things to look at, but as far as maintenance to get it back on the road, it's very quick. That's one of the fine things about these machines.
And that's kind of, this is about, for our rental partners, this is about helping you to make revenue and minimize cost. So if our machines are able to turn around, come in, go back out on rent quickly and easily, that's less downtime for you. That's less time with your mechanics. It's more money in your pocket. And that's, not to sound crass, but I used to have a professor, and she said, your job as an operator is every customer walks in with a dollar sign above their head, and your job is to make it as easy as possible for them to transfer that dollar sign from their head to yours. So it's not saying anything about how you run a business or anything like that, but you're in business for a reason. It's to make money. And if your machines are constantly down, if they're constantly broken, if you can't get the support that you need, if you can't get parts, then that's not going to help you out in the long term, because it's going to take money out of your pocket. And something we do really well, Tom's got a great team back there with him in Minnesota, a third Tom. So if you don't know who to ask for at National, just ask for a Tom. You'll get sent to one of us, and we'll send you in the right direction. Tom Nyland is phenomenal at troubleshooting these machines. If your mechanics don't know kind of what the answer is, or our resources aren't good enough, he knows these things backwards and forwards, upside and topside. He's always available. We're able to ship out parts same day if you order early enough in the day, and we can get overnight quotes anywhere in the world. So, we really are here. We stand by our machines, and hopefully any repairs by doing these checklists are mitigated or found quickly enough that you can get the machine repaired before it goes out on its next job. So just keep that in mind. It's not just the machine that you're purchasing in the long run. It's also the company and the people that you're partnering with. And, Tom, I think 2 years ago our slogan on the catalog was "Service is everything."
Indeed.
And even though it's not on the front of our catalog now, we still absolutely 100% believe that. So, yeah, without further ado, I think I talk a lot. So we can jump into our marketing team is saying, yes, you do. We could jump into the rental checklist and kind of go through some of the different things. These are a little more involved. So
Before you do that, we do
Yes. So what I'll
we have
do
a question.
all right.
So, why is there not a seatbelt on the 8000?
Why is there not a seatbelt on the 8000? So, I think our engineers have gone back and forth on this. This machine weighs almost 3,000 pounds. If you're in a seatbelt attached to this machine and for some reason it were to tip over, you are now tipping over with 3,000 pounds strapped to your butt. And I don't know about you, but I would rather leap away from the machine and get clear of the machine rather than have a leg or an arm or a piece of clothing or something else get stuck underneath that machine. We always say here, you can repair a machine, you can get another machine, but you can't replace or necessarily repair that person and make that whole again. So the reason is safety. And it sounds weird to think about it that way, but being able to clear yourself from a machine going over in a bad situation is better than being strapped to it. Thank you. That was a great question. Anything more, just chat them in and our team will interrupt me. Because we're really here for you today. I can talk all day, so I want to make sure you guys are getting the knowledge that you're looking for, and also to be knowledgeable when you're talking to your customers. If your customer says, "Why isn't there a seatbelt on this machine?" Now you've got that answer and that knowledge to be able to answer it perfectly. So, all right.
All right.
Well,
let's get.
jump in.
I'm going to go through the checklist, Tom, and when applicable, I'll try to switch over and bring up what might be different on the 5700 or our battery-operated machines. How's that sound?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay. Okay, we're just going to go through the checklist. You might.
Nick just went,
Chatter said, I heard you're from San Diego. Do you know Ron Burgundy personally?
Ron Burgundy? Why, yes, he was my hero, my mentor growing up. He's where I got my sense of humor from, and maybe later on I'll play some Yaz flute for you. But I'll need a martini or two before then. All right, let's jump in.
Right. All right, first thing on the checklist, read the manual before operating. It's QR code now. Tough not to be able to read it. Always suggest that they do. So read the manual. Next on the list, and the list I'm looking at right now is for the 8000. It's a propane unit. Inspect the air filter. That's on the propane motor. What I would compare the 5700 or our battery operated units to is on our battery operated units, there's an electric motor, of course, when it's installed. The fan and the fan cover, of course, when we install it, it's upside down. So that fan is right behind your caster, or right behind your caster wheels down by the cutting head. I would hit that with an air hose after it comes back every time. Dust builds up on that, and you may start seeing a little lesser runtime. That's the reason. So clean the air filter, clean the fan and the fan cover on the battery. Check for propane, oil, coolant, hydraulic fluid. Check them, make sure the levels are good. Same goes for the battery, more on the line of just the hydraulics. You're not going to have to worry about oil or coolant, but the hydraulic fluid, yes.
And Tom, Nick put a link down in the description of this video. Dave did a wonderful video showing how to properly check the hydraulic fluid on our ride-on machines, and it happens just to be on the other side of this one today. But if you've got any questions about how to do it or the proper way and the proper fill level, that video will take care of it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Check engine oil level as well. So that's a little separate from, of course, our hydraulic fluid. Check the oil level. As you're checking the coolant, do it while the motor's cold. So don't do it while it's hot, and certainly not running. Sounds obvious. Got to say it. Propane tank fuel level. Keep an eye on that. I don't think you should be shipping it out with the propane tank attached. I'm sure that happens. Just make sure it's good and secure to those brackets. They're pretty solid. They hold it in there really well.
Well, and if I can stop you real quick, just these machines use a vapor. Or, sorry, this says liquid. So you want to make sure you're using the right tank with these. So if your customer just goes and gets, a barbecue propane tank from Home Depot to run them, it's not going to work. So I think it would be better for you to send them out with 1 or 2 tanks to make sure that you've got the right tanks to go with the machines.
Perfect. Good point,
That's what
Tom.
I got.
No, that's awesome. Fan belt. Check for tension, wear. Keep an eye on that. Those can last a long time, but always make sure you're keeping an eye out for that fan belt. This next point goes to any of our ride-ons. Make sure that the seat is securely fastened to the machine. Again, we know what these things go through. People are sitting on it. Some guys are bigger than others. Just check, make sure the seat's attached. And that again goes through for all of our ride-ons, or frankly anything you're sitting on that you're renting out. So next thing, get on the machine and kind of go through the starting procedures. Do that once you bring it back. Always do that when you're running it out, so end user knows that. So these start differently. One, you got to pull the primer on the propane unit. Make sure that gets started up that way. On the battery one, it's just a matter of releasing the e-stop and hitting the green button. But make sure you go through those steps both when you're checking it in and sending it out. So with regards to the propane, while the machine's off, make sure all the control levers are working, that there's nothing holding them up. So make sure you push them forward, bring them back. So it's just it's a good idea to do that. Make sure there's nothing loose on it. Tom's kind of showing you there. Backup beeper. That's easy. Start the unit, sit on them, pull it back, make sure that backup beeper is intact and working. Make sure it's working.
So it's not working on this right now because it's a propane machine. There's no electrical current going through it. But if you were to do this on one of our battery-powered ride-ons, it would beep whether or not the machine's running. Just so you guys know and are aware of that.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. A battery one, if it's the power's on it, it's always going to go. It's just going to go. So, but that has to be on a job site. You don't want to back up and hit anyone with it. So be sure that that's operable. Hydraulic fluid level, we've talked about that. Move the filler plug located in the front right or front right of rear tire. Hydraulic fluid should be visible 1 inch below the hole. If it's not, top it off, reinstate the filter plug. Check that regularly. You'll know if you have a leak. Obviously, there'll be a spot on the ground, but and again, always keep an eye on that when you're using it. Take a look at where it's been sitting. Make sure there's nothing weeping.
I mean, Tom, I'm just going to tell you, I was at a job site and they blew one of the hydraulic hoses that goes from the lever back to the wheel motors. It's very obvious when there's a leak. It's not something that, you got to be scared of that, well, it might be a slow leak and it could run. No, when it leaks, it leaks. And your customer is going to know it and you're going to know it, that there's hydraulic fluid leaking from somewhere.
Yeah. And also keep in mind, these units need probably about 3.5, 4 gallons of fluid. There's, I think, a little bit over 7 gallons that we put in. So if the levels do get a little low, or if you do get a small weeping of a hose and you tighten it back up, check the fluid for sure, but don't panic too bad.
Yeah,
So,
well, and I think making sure, another thing, and it's a weird thing to bring up, making sure that the hydraulic fluid levels are correct is not just about the operation of the machine necessarily, but the machine, the hydraulic fluid, is cooled by the tank and the recirculation of the hydraulic fluid. So that's one of the reasons we have so much hydraulic fluid in here to start with, is that as that fluid circulates and it gets dumped back into the hydraulic tank, that's how it's cooling down instead of a radiator. So it's a different way that we're doing that. So if you're low on hydraulic fluid, then it's not going to get the proper cooling that's required to keep the machine operating efficiently.
all right. Thank you, Tom. Keep fittings and hoses tight, right? If there's a leak that's noticeable, retighten. If the leak persists, remove the connection and inspect. Caution, don't do this while it's running. If you're there by yourself, if you get off the machine, our machines will shut off. But if someone's around there to help you, don't do it while it's running. It's hard to, but don't. So something that we got to say. We're going to talk about removing glue and different things from the wheels. We discussed this over going through the Gladiator. This goes across the board on any of our scrapers. Clean the wheels. Clean the wheels from any debris, always. So,
and I would go one step further too. Shine a light up behind those wheels too. Make sure that there's no, if they were moving carpet or VCT or something else, make sure that there's no any carpet or any debris tied around the axle back there, because that's going to be the fastest way to burn out your wheel motor. But then also your caster wheel up front here, making sure to check that for flat spots. And also making sure that that's clear of debris, because if that gets carpet threads or anything wrapped into it or something jammed into it, these wheels are strong enough, you'll scoot the machine along on a caster wheel that's not rolling, but then you're just rubbing it away, and so then you're going to have a flat spot, and it's going to either not work or be really uncomfortable to use it later on.
Thank you, Tom. Also, with regards to that, we're looking for debris and different things and wear and tear on the tires. Also, the cutting head. Just like the Gladiator, any cutting head you're using, these things are going to get beat up. You're going to end up replacing them eventually. But keep an eye on them. Make sure they're sound. Make sure they're capable of holding the blades in securely. Battery cables. That goes across all lines. Make sure the battery cables to the propane units are hooked up and tightened down. The 5700 or any of our battery units. Again, not a lot of maintenance, but make sure those cables are secured well on all the batteries. So again, these things bounce around. They're doing a lot of heavy lifting, if you will. So keep an eye on those. That should be part of the maintenance as it is here. So maintenance, nameplates, warning stickers, again, always keep an eye out for those. It's an easy thing to overlook, but keep an eye on it. Have extra on hand. If not, we can get them to you immediately. They're there for a reason. So make sure that they're visible and you can read them. owner's manual, we've been talking about that. Again, it's going to be a QR code, and I'm saying we should be able to send you a sticker moving forward if you want to put it on there so you can scan that. And a lot of times when the manual's in there, make sure it's pulled out in red. So that's it for the 8000. With regards to the battery, again, check all those battery cables and their connection. There's obviously a lot more to those batteries on that unit, but keep an eye on that. And again, that electric motor up front, make sure it's cleaned off. And remember that fan cover and fan are toward the ground. I promise you it'll make a difference. So that's what I have on the rental checklist. In, out on the 8000. We covered it on the battery operated units. We have any questions out there?
I don't see any questions. A couple other things that I like to go over with my rental customers on the battery machines is that, I'm going to trip myself here. There's actually a blue plug that's kind of tucked back in here, and then you have a 70 amp breaker on this side. If they're on a job site and they're renting that machine for multiple days and they want to leave it overnight, I always recommend unplugging that blue plug and or switching off that breaker, because then the machine won't start. And if somebody wanted to, for some reason, mess with it or steal it, they're not really hard things to figure out, but it's going to take somebody some time to figure it out, and somebody might notice them. Also, it's really good for when you're doing maintenance on the machine, especially the battery ride-ons, to switch off that breaker and disconnect the battery pack. So that way, you're not going to injure yourself or, short circuit anything when you're working on the machine. There are ways to bypass, even on the propane machine. All of our machines have a safety switch in the seat. If a machine for some reason isn't turning on, that's a really good place to start, making sure that both connections are there. Or if a customer brings a machine back and your tech goes to stand up and they would expect it to shut off like it usually does and it doesn't. It's been known that some customers out there will bypass the safety switch, which is, we do it when we're doing maintenance on the machines to test electrical systems and stuff, but then we always make sure to put it back in working order. So if a machine's behaving a little bit weird, that's a good place to start to figure out maybe why it's not shutting off or maybe not coming on. I've seen that happen more than once, just because a customer was tired of getting jostled around or something on the machine and the safety switch would trip. So just for everyone out there too to know, the propane machines have a safety wow, say that 15 times fast. A safety switch in the seat. So if somebody's using a propane machine and for some reason it keeps cutting off, they probably just need to adjust how they're sitting on the machine. Trying to think if there's anything else I've got. On a propane machine, when you're opening it to do inspections on the motor and all that, you really also want to make sure that you watch this propane cord, because it does slide through right here. And if you were to go back and just let this fall backwards a little too fast, it could rip this out, and then you have a more major repair to do. That's what I kind of have. Are there any questions out there, guys? Anything on any other things you want us to look at, zoom in on the machines? Questions to ask?
Hey, one last thing on the battery powered checklist, as I'm looking over mine in front of me, the cord, the 7-foot cord. Always make sure that you have that on the machine. Put it around one of the handles.
This way.
It's the optimal way to charge it. So the 7-foot cord, make sure it's with it.
So we have a question. What happens to your charging time if you don't use this cord? Tom, you want to handle that one?
Like I mentioned, the 7-foot is optimal, so it's getting the most juice to the battery. So if a longer cord is used, and we know that happens, it just takes longer charge time. So if you're going to a 25-foot, it's going to take longer. 50-foot, it's going to take longer. So for us, the only cord is 7-foot. I understand real world things too. So just expect a longer charge time to do that.
Yep. And I always recommend a longer cord for storage. So once the machine's fully charged, if you're going to have it in the back of the shop, it's not going out on rent again right away. Once it's fully charged, you can plug it into that longer cord because the battery pack, the charger, will actually work as like a battery tender trickle charger. So when the pack needs to get charged, it'll turn on, and then you're not caring about how long it's going to take to charge it. You just want it to stay topped off for your next rental customer. So charge it with the short one to start with, and then put it in storage and attach a longer one to it. So that way it's ready to go for your next rental. I think we could talk about, Tom, maybe go over some tips and tricks for blade choices or tooling choices for different types of flooring, things that we would recommend rental places have on hand. What do you think?
This has been a great time saving. It saves walls. It'll make you rental company a hero. If I have someone coming in and say, I'm doing a school, there's a lot of VCT in there, but equally there's a lot of hallway. A little trick so that end user isn't going back and forth into that wall to get up to the edge. We have a 27-inch blade holder that's a bit wider than our machine itself. You can install a blade at the end of it and let it hang out. So now your operator can just drive parallel with the wall and clean up right along to the edge. A couple things. It's going to be quicker, and maybe you don't want it to be quicker because you want more rental, but it's going to save the machine getting beat on when them going back and forth hitting the wall. It'll ultimately is the proper way, and it'll help your machine. That's one I of course learned when I started working here over 10 years ago. I probably bring it up once a week to people, and they're like, wow, that's awesome. That's fantastic. That's a time saver. That's everything. So that's just one real quick one for me.
I really like
there's a lot.
I was gonna say I really like the replaceable tip carbide shank. So the main kit comes with the actual shank and then the set screws, but it also comes with 3 carbide tips that your customer can rotate in and out. But then you can sell them the tips and keep the shank with the machine. And then that way, if you just keep an extra supply of those, just the carbide tips on hand, then you're always sending them out with a sharp tip. So your customer's not going to complain about a dull shank. And you're also not worried about necessarily getting those tips back. Just as long as you've got that shank back, then you're good to go for the next time as well. That's something I really like for rental companies.
Yeah, absolutely. But as far as we could have 10 seminars on blades, blade choices, and removal situations, we're just touching base on a couple of ones that come up quite often.
Yep. And I always talk about too with rental customers, you don't need to have every blade in stock, but maybe if you have our top blades, some 12-inch flat blades, some 45-degree angle blades or carpet blades, those are going to take care of the vast majority of what your customers are going to come up against. And then, heavy duty blades are always better, especially with the ride-on. You want to use a .094 blade at a minimum. We make even thicker blades up to a 1/4-inch thick steel. I actually had a rental customer here in Denver, and they were buying the blades that we use on our Viking to use on our ride-on scrapers because they'd send them out on rent and they would come back in almost the same exact shape that they sent out. And the customers never complained because they were always removing everything that stood in front of them without bending or breaking or doing anything else. So it's a bigger investment up front and maybe not necessary for everybody because they're also really heavy. And some jobs really require a sharp blade. But .094 at a minimum is what I recommend with these. And then you can get away with the .062 with the walk behind scrapers.
Yeah, good call, Tom.
So are any other questions out there, guys? I mean, we're here. I think in the last last workshop, I mentioned that all of our sales guys have access to return on investment worksheet. So we can actually customize that for you. So if you're watching this and you're curious about what you might expect your return on this investment to be, because these machines aren't cheap, we have the ability to customize it for you with rental rates, with daily, weekly, monthly rentals, kind of what you might think to expect. We know from all of the rental partners that we have out there now what our expected maintenance costs are on these. Are really low. That's even factored into it. And we have it not only for our ride-ons and our walk-behinds, but we have it for our grinders and our shop blasters. And actually, John, who joined me last time in workshop number 3, he actually just updated it with some great information for everybody on our sales team to use. So we've got the latest numbers there. If you're not sure what these rent for, then that would be a great place to start, and then you can customize it for your market. All of the sales reps, I used to be a regional sales manager here in the U.S. We're all knowledgeable. We're all here. Tom's a phone call away. Dave, our director of international training, is a phone call away. Becky and Heather and our customer service team at the home office are amazing. We can always recommend the right blade trips for you or your customer. So if you're renting a machine and you're not entirely sure what to recommend for it, we're here to answer your questions. We've got the knowledge to do that and to help make the right choice. You know, we had a guy removing pavers, and he wanted to use an angle shank. And I learned something. I went to Dave and I said, Dave, it's not working, and I don't think this is the right choice. And Dave said, no, well, that's what a straight shank is made for, is to remove pavers. And so I didn't know that. So I learned from him and then was able to get the customer the right tooling. And then all of a sudden the machine is performing better than the customer expected, simply because we were able to troubleshoot it for the customer. And we're never going to sell them a machine if they want to buy one, we'll sell them a machine. But, we're representing you. And so we're not going to be stealing customers or treating them poorly, because we want to make sure that you as a rental company are successful.
Perfect. I want to touch on one safety thing that, to me, this is really important. If you have an 8000, a 7700, or any of our units that have the DL to it, the dual lift, this isn't so much. But if you have the standard units with the manually adjusted slide plate, use extreme caution here. You always want to watch it. When you loosen those bolts, that slide plate's going to go right to the ground. It's heavy. Keep your fingers away from it, and then get it down, and then work it up. 2x4s under their help to get it to the proper height. So just use real caution on that. If you have any concerns, questions, you want us to walk through that with you, we can do it virtually, of course. We all have phones with cameras, any way you want. Just be careful there, and really, really stress that to your end user. So that's all.
And on our new website, just something else too, as you're searching for different resources and demos, all of those videos that we've been talking about today too are linked through the website. So National Flooring, I always say it wrong, nationalequipmentdirect.com. I don't know, it's always in my thing, I just type national and it pops right up. So on the website, we've got all those videos linked through for you. So if you don't want to go directly to our YouTube channel, you can find them there as well. We really want to make sure that we're supporting you, our customers, as well as your rental customers, our end users, just which way that we can.
It's all on the product pages.
And it's on the product pages. I think that was the key part I missed. So all the documents, all of the rental safety checklists we've talked about, the manuals, if they go on our website, click on riders and then, 8,000, all of the specific manuals and instructions and rental checklists and videos are going to be on the 8,000 page for that product. So, that's what I got today. Anybody else out there watching, you got any questions? Want to know how the Avs did? Because they did really well last night. Let's go, Cadre. No? Anybody? All right. Well, I know we got a little bit of a delay, but thank you guys for joining us today. Really appreciate the time that you spent with us this morning. feel free to share this video. It's going to be out there online. That's what I got. Oh,
Yeah, same here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning into this down the road. And if this isn't enough, you know how to get a hold of us. Reach out. We'll get you the answer if we don't know it. So please call. We're right here for you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And make sure that if you don't want to ever miss the next workshop, which should be in late July, I believe, make sure to hit subscribe, like our videos, share our videos. We appreciate you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.